Hello, and welcome back to the Test Modeler 101 series. In this chapter, we'll be covering how to parameterize your subprocess data. Within a master model, subflows can share information with one another, such as variables, and subflow parameters allow you to pass and overwrite variable values that have been set from other parts of the model. For the task today, we'll be passing variables between two subflows. The only prerequisite will be to have at least two or more models created with test data variables. From there, the first step will be to expose our variable values in both of our models. The second step is to map the output variables to our master model. And our third and final step will be to assign the variable values to that other subflow. So here we are inside of our master model, and we have two subflows, one for a registration model and then one for a login page model. So if we just open these up real quick, we can see that the user has to create a username and a password within this model. And then for the login model, they're going to be entering in that username and password they created. So our goal within this master model will be to pass the variable values set within this model into this later model down the test case. So the first thing we'll want to do is expose the values in both of our models. In the registration model, we're going to expose it as an output, and in the login, we'll expose it as an input. So to do that, we'll just want to open up our model. Here we are inside of the registration model. So if we navigate over to test data and automation and the variables tab, we can see our two variables here, one for password and one for username. And if we go underneath the settings cog and click edit, it'll bring up this menu here. So we'll want to make sure for this part, so this is the model in front of the other, we'll expose this as an outflow parameter. In other words, it could pass variables down into our master model. So we'll just want to make sure that that is chosen for our given variables. So both of these have been set as output parameters. And now let's navigate over to our second model. And now we're looking at the login model, and we'll just repeat that step where we look at the test data variables, but this time we'll want to assign them as an inflow parameter, meaning that it can accept data. So we'll just make sure that that is both checked, and we'll click Save. And now we can go back to our master model for step number 2. So we're back inside of the master model to do our next step, and that will be to expose the output parameters as a master model variable. And to do that, we can map those two together. So if we go and navigate over to our registration model, and if we right click and click on Subflow properties, there's a couple of tabs here. So there's one for input parameters, if there were any for this model, a details tab, as well as a mapped outputs tab, and that's the one we're interested in. So here we can see that username and password that we exposed earlier, and we'll just want to click on both of those and select map variables. And in the upper right-hand corner, we can see that those have been mapped, meaning that they're now available for use inside of our master model. So let's click Save. And if we look inside of our variables tab now, we can see that we have that mapped version available for us to use. So this is what we will be passing down into our login model. Now let's complete the final step where we map those variables to our Subflow parameter. So to do that, we'll navigate over to our login model, and underneath the test data assignment tab, we'll see we have two available Subflow parameters, one for the username and one for the password. So we'll want to override this value, which the default would be whatever was set inside of your actual model, and we'll want to override it with the mapped variable we just created. So I'm just going to copy over the value for this. And then that was for the password. So let's go ahead and copy over our username as well. Okay, great. So now that we have those two assigned, we can go ahead and generate the test cases, and we could take a look at the test data it created. To preview that test data, we have this test case selected, and we'll navigate to Run, and we'll want to select the Preview Test Data option. So here we can see what data was resolved. So we can see that we have the username and password from the registration model, we have our mapped values, and most importantly, it is successfully able to pass along the values that we mapped. So in other words, it's now going inside of from the registration to our login subflow.